take it to the other side. You know I used to smoke too much. You know I used to drink too much. Take a ride in my car. You can get me high, high, high. You know I used to smoke too much. And you know I used to drink too much. Take a ride in my car. We're gonna get real. I'm feeling good. My little lady, she's gonna take me to the other side. I'm feeling nice. My little lady, she's gonna keep me moving on. I'm gonna run till I drop to the break of dawn. Never gonna stop. She's gonna treat me right. I'm feeling good. My little lady, she's gonna take me to the other side. You know I used to smoke too much. And you know I used to drink too much. Take a ride in my car, and you can get me high, high, high. You know I used to smoke too much. And you know I used to drink too much. Take a ride in my car, and we're gonna get real. Come on, baby. Let's take a ride. I don't know where we're gonna go, but first, let's dance. You know I used to smoke too much. And you know I used to drink too much. Take a ride in my car, and you can get me high, high, high. You know I used to smoke too much. And you know I used to drink too much. Take a ride in my car, and we're gonna get real. Oh, oh, I'm feeling high, my little lady. I'm gonna take it to the other side. I'm feeling strong, my little lady. I'm gonna keep her moving on. I'm gonna run till I drop to the break of dawn. Never gonna...
Giottos is so good. These chocolates are what? Chocolates. We're here about astrophotography. What are we doing? Wrong video. Whoops.
What have I done? Ooh, what have you seen? Early at night, got in the fight, in the candlelight, looking through the screen. Now what have I done? What have you seen? You know there's no future when a person has come in between. Jamie's gone, Jamie's gone. Can't look back, and now he feels so strong. Jamie's gone, Jamie's gone. Left last night, and now it's been so long. What have I done? What have you seen? nothing to say, took her away, and I feel the pain, made love in vain. Oh, oh, what have I done? What have you seen? She knows there's no future in love when a person has come in between. Jamie's gone, Jamie's gone. Can't look back, and now he feels so strong. Jamie's gone, Jamie's gone. Oh, left last night, and now it seems so long. Ooh. You can't hear these words I say when you're a million miles away. Yeah. Jamie's gone, Jamie's gone. Can't look back, and now it feels so strong. Jamie's gone, Jamie's gone. Left last night, and now it seems so long. Jamie, come on, Jamie, yeah. And now you feel so strong. Jamie, come on, Jamie, yeah. Left last night, and now it seems so long. What the hell's wrong with my telescope now? What's wrong with this thing? The lost Lone Ranger, can I break this spell? Do one thing right, I choose two things wrong. If I want that fine line, I will always take it wrong. If I just do left, watch it here from the right. I sleep all day long, and then I'm dreaming through the night. I've seen a lot of bankers, and I've seen a lot of cops. I've seen a lot of lawyers pull out all the stops. I've seen a lot of children with their parents in their hands. I've felt a lot of women refuse to understand. Well, I don't think I understand why we're making such a fuss. And I don't think I understand what's come of all of us. And I don't think I understand why we take this world for granted. I just want to get right back to Guitar Players Planet. You see it in the papers, you read it every day. The riots and the fires going on in South LA. The muggers and the government, they're all wanting the same thing. They take for your money, whatever else spring. Well, I don't think I understand why we're making such fuss. And I don't think I understand what's come of all of us. And I don't think I understand why we take this world for granted. I just want to get right back to Guitar Players Planet. Take me. Making such a fuss, and I don't think I understand what's come of all of us. And I don't think I understand why we take this world for granted. I just want to get right back to Guitar Players Planet. 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 Guitar Players Planet.
It's gotta mean something. It's gotta. All right. Where did my color go? Got your head in the sand. You can't be in control, using a powerful hand. I wanna be you, I wanna see you. Don't taste the kisses of hate. Don't try to tell me, don't try to sell me, don't try to say it's too late. You're gonna push me to the edge, back me in a corner, making me stand in your shoes. Push me to the edge, hide a little color, it's black and white and blue. Black and white and blue, yeah. All right. Cat learns to ring a bell. Rat gets free from the maze. We can be taught to love. We've got to learn a new way. I wanna see, I wanna be. Don't taste the kisses of hate. Don't try to tell me, don't try to sell me, don't try to say it's too late. Yeah, you're gonna push me to the edge, back me in a corner, making me stand in your shadows. Push me to the edge, add a little color, it's black and white and blue. Black and white and blue. Yeah, 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 yeah. see. Don't taste the kisses of hate. Don't try to tell me, don't try to sell me, don't try to say it's too late. Push me to the edge, back me in a corner, making me stand in your shoes. Push me to the edge, hide a little color, it's black and white and blue. Yeah, black and white and blue. You're gonna black and white on the edge, back me in a corner, making me stand in your shoes. Push me to the edge, hide a little color, it's black and white and blue. Black and white and blue.
Another man come around today, gonna mess with my dream, gonna take it all away. Take it all away. I'm just a boy with nothing to lose, got my head in the news, got a bad attitude, yeah. Take it all away. So I play guitar. Another woman come around today, she wanna slice up my pie, she's gonna try to lock me all the way. Lock it all the way. I'm just a boy with nothing to lose, got my head in the news, got my bad attitude, yeah. I don't care, 'cause I got nothing to lose. I don't care, 'cause I won't let them bring me down.
So it's a wonderful night tonight. It's really good. You know, cloudy nights and not cloudy nights, but clear dark sky you know, was it clear outside? Says it's going to be a wonderful night tonight. I mean, tonight, last night was wonderful. Tomorrow's supposed to be great. So I think I'm going to leave my telescope out all night, and it's going to be a really nice night tonight. So I'm hoping to get some really good shots of the Cave Nebula, which is part of my astrophotography meets D&D imaging. I know it's kind of scary, like the way I look at my eyes, kind of crazy. It's pretty cool, but I'm super excited for tonight, and let's see what kind of data I got. Well, yeah.
Dirty. I swear to God, these clouds are just pissing me the off. I don't understand. I don't listen to these things anymore. I can't take it. New York, you suck. And you know what? I'm so done with all this. My telescope's out here chilling out, and all I got is freaking clouds and PhD beeping at me till no goddamn end. Unbelievable. What am I gonna do? I need to move. I'm so finished with this. I hate this.
I've seen a lot of bankers, and I've seen a lot of cops. I've seen a lot of lawyers pull out all the stops.
Boom, 10 seconds. 4. Hello, everybody out there in AstroWorld land. We made it finally. What's going on? How's it going, everybody?
What's up, everybody?
We're here tonight with Dan Llewellyn, and we're going to talk a little bit to Dan about, the planetary photography tonight, right, Eric?
Yeah. So this is so Dan, thank you for joining us. This is something that I know our viewer membership has been asking about for quite some time, is, doing planetary imaging. We got a lunar eclipse coming up pretty soon. So you guys wanted to, learn a bit more about this. So we have Dan Llewellyn. Dan has been an we'll let him give his bio, but it's extensive. Trust me. So Dan, thank you for joining us. If you want to give us a little tidbit about you and your astrophotography journey, that would be great.
Okay. Well, hey, thanks. And thank you very much for having me on the show. I started planetary imaging back in 1999, which is eons ago as far as the imaging goes. I mean, that was back when CCD cameras were just minuscule. Everybody was still using film. Basically, what I did to start out with was, I don't know if you remember having a digital 8 video camera from Sony.
Oh,
It's a
absolutely.
digital 8. Well, it had a FireWire port on it, and the FireWire port would allow you to change the analog signal on the tape to digital. And so I bought a $4,000 computer at the time to frame grab pictures when it was I would capture the video. I would hold the camera up to the eyepiece and capture the video, and then frame grab with the FireWire camera and separate the good pictures from the bad pictures, because the thing about seeing is that it blurs everything out and then it sharpens up, and it blurs everything out and it sharpens up. Believe it or not, the actual effect of the atmosphere is called speckling. And despeckling is what they use for adaptive optics. If the atmosphere didn't speckle, we'd never be able to resharpen anything from the atmosphere. So it was an interesting discovery they had about speckling versus absolute blurring with a blur radius that couldn't be figured out. So what happens is when you image in planetary imaging, you notice, like, when you first look through the eyepiece, your eye has a tendency to smooth out stuff. It will automatically act like a video camera and sort of smooth everything out.
Yep.
And so, but even that, you can see the planet when you look at it. If the seeing's rough, it'll blur out, it'll sharpen up, it'll blur out, it'll sharpen up, it'll blur out bad, and then sharpen up. So one of the ways that you want to beat that is you want to just take all the good frames that come in. You want to discard all the bad frames, because there's a good amount of frames there. And what you do is you stack those frames up. You build up the signal to noise ratio by stacking as many good frames as you can. And I used to manually throw those out. I can't tell you how many hours I used to spend taking frames and going through a 5,000 frame video and just Xing out the ones that I don't want, and then having to stack the ones that I want. Then all of a sudden the webcam comes along. That's the USB 1.1 webcam.
He's a 2-cam pro or whatever it was.
2-cam, that's right. 2-cam.
I remember that.
And so that immediately invalidated my $4,000 setup.
Yep.
So I was able to surf the front wave for like 6 months, and then crash. But I still got the webcam going, and that really revolutionized everything, because you could capture at 320 by 240.
Yep.
Believe it or not, the webcam was 640 by 480, but it interpolated up. It doubled digitally the signal to make it 640 by 480. At least the early ones did. And so basically what happened was that there was a company that used to make little adapters where you could unscrew the lens off of the 2-cam, and you could get a little can, which a film canister from the old days. You could modify a film canister and put threads on it and screw it on yourself, or you could buy one. There was 2 or 3 guys who made all these adapters to put on these webcams. And so instead of holding up the digital camera at the eyepiece and recording the planet, you were able to just take the eyepiece out and put the camera in, and then just record directly to your hard drive. Of course, back in the day, you had spinner hard drives, and you ran into all sorts of trouble. Like it can't keep up with the frames you're trying to capture, and you're dropping frames everywhere, and your hard drive gets full, and just all sorts of crazy technological barriers you're slamming up to in 2001. But eventually everybody sort of makes it out of the woods, and what happens is you're able to improve. The technology improves, the cameras get better, the frame rates get faster, hard drives get faster. I remember back in the day when 7200 RPM hard drives came out, that was critical. And then of course SSDs today, USB 3. So we used to capture at frame rates of 30 frames a second, and now I'll clip 250 easy. So that's
wow.
And the reason that you want to do that is certain planets, especially Jupiter, rotate really fast. So you can only capture for about 2 minutes before the rotation of the planet starts to smear what you captured. So if you did 4 minutes, even though you get a bunch of sharp frames, they're slightly displaced, and it'll make your final stack blurry. So you got to get as many frames as you can in 2 minutes. Saturn 3 minutes, Mars 4 minutes. But that's about it. And of course, later on, they've got the derotation algorithms that came along that are more advanced, which I'm not going to talk about today. But they got derotation stuff where you can actually derotate it back like 10 minutes and stack stuff up. But anyway, long story short, if you go out and you're able to have excellent seeing, where it's very stable, and you capture for 2 minutes, and half or more of your frames are really, really sharp, you're focused, and all the other things that go with planetary imaging, collimation, acclimation of your telescope, etc., you can stack up a really good image. I mean, you can produce some good images. And so I'm fortunate enough I sent a lot of my images into Sky Telescope, and a few of them got published. I'm sort of the Rodney Dangerfield of planetary imaging. That means I get no respect. Everybody knows who Damian Peach is. Everybody knows who Christopher Go is. But not too many people know who I am, and that's fine. I'll just fly under the radar. That's fine with me. But I have given talks all over the place. I've given talks at NEAC, Georgia Tech, Emory, just a lot of star parties across. I was the imaging symposium director at the Peach State for 10 years. And so I sort of know what I'm doing a little bit. And I've, I've gotten a few images published in Sky. As a matter of fact, I got 2 published. I got a Jupiter image published in Sky and Tel in 2024 and a Saturn image in 2023. And I've had some Mars and a couple other images, published in Sky and Telescope. And I got another one for the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. I got the Mars Moon published there. So, hey, for old guys to get a little cred like that, hey, that's keeps us relevant,
That's
right?
all right. That's it. So, now, let me ask you a question here real quick, Dan.
Yeah.
That me personally, and I'm sure maybe for some of our viewers who are novices or who are going to watch this in the replay, when we talk about seeing, and seeing is very important, the stability of the atmosphere, seeing is very important. Are there web apps, like weather apps or tools that you use for like a layperson to say, hey, I want to go to maybe clear dark sky or go to astrophyric, and I want to see what the seeing is like tonight to see if this is a good time for me to image the planet. What do you use? What do you recommend? Correct. And what should we be willing to look out for?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. You want to use Clear Sky Clock, and you want to use atmospheric. Is that how it's pronounced? That's a good. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You want to use that. You want to use Meteo Blue. It has a nice little upper wind pattern that's really important, because a lot of times bad seeing is caused by the jet stream and upper level winds that go right across and just mess everything up. So, but sometimes when the forecast is bad seeing, you can get good seeing. It's not a slam dunk. Sometimes when it's forecast good seeing, you get bad seeing, and then you start using some colorful metaphors, about how they just, you're like ticked off that, hey, the forecast was supposed to be great, and I'm out here and it's no good. So, but planetary imaging is so fast. It's like if you have your telescope set up in your backyard and you just have a cover over it, or if you can roll it out of your garage real quickly, you can get on the planet in 10 minutes and ascertain instantly whether seeing is good or not, just by looking with your camera. So I would say, yes, go by those sites for the most part, but don't let it deter you, especially when you're starting out, because you need to get in the habit of getting the camera on the chip, focusing, capturing. It needs to be something you just become rote, memory wise. You need to get, really, really dialed in on doing that. And then it becomes like you do it in your sleep.
Gotcha. Now, do you use an electronic focuser when you do your planetary imaging, or do you manually focus?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do both. I learned how to manually focus back in the day, so I can focus with a coarse focuser C14 and get it perfect, only because of practice. And that was the only thing you could do back in the late 90s when you focus. I mean, they didn't even have these 10-to-1 focusers out yet. They started to have the motorized Crayfords out from JMI, and I have one of those as well. So I'll do both. I'll manually focus, but I would tell people to get a Crayford on the back of their scope with a hand paddle, so you can, change the focus on the fly. And you're going to focus by live stream focusing, looking at the image directly on the screen and focusing till it's the sharpest.
Gotcha. Okay. So I know you wanted to, I know we got, an event going on right now. We have the transit, happening at Jupiter right now.
Yeah, we've got a shadow transit.
You talked a little bit about that. Yeah, you got a shadow transit. So I know you wanted to share, your screen, and maybe let us go through live, what you would do to capture.
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my wife take my phone out, and you're going to watch me put the scope on Jupiter, and we're going to do a live capture. So you want me to walk out there now?
Awesome. Yeah, whenever you're
awesome. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, here we go. Can you see me?
We're going to switch over to. Yep, there we
go. Yeah, we can see you.
Yep, we're good now. Yep.
All right. So what this is a C14, and basically it's on paramount, so I've got to get it in the starting position here. So let me get it going here.
I wish I could reverse the camera so I could see what I'm filming.
Oh, reverse the camera?
I'm not going to try.
Okay. So basically what I'm doing here is I've kept the light on so you can see in the observatory here. So I've started my telescope up, and what I've got is I've got a Telrad on it. And so what I want to do is I want to put Jupiter in the center of the Telrad, and then we're going to put an eyepiece in here and center it up. Now, there's some interesting things that you can do instead of having an eyepiece. For centering up, you can have a flip mirror here, which is what I recommend. So you can put the eyepiece here and the camera on the back, and so you flip it up and you can look through the eyepiece, center the planet, and then pull the flip mirror back, and then you get the planet on the chip. Now you got to remember something: these chips are really small, so it's really hard to get these the planet on the chip. You have to be sort of exacting. So here we go. Let me get the planet and the Telrad real quick here.
Okay.
All right. So let's see. All right. You can ask any question you want while I'm doing this.
Yeah, we have we just have some comments right now. People are saying, yeah, you got a lot of equipment. So I was telling folks, yeah, you've got you have your roll-off
Yeah,
roof
you like
there,
all this?
and got a good mix of equipment in there.
Pretty good
Wow,
size.
this is 30 years worth of collecting.
Well, I got
There you go.
a dumb beginner question for you about Planetary that comes all the time on the forums, on the chats, on everything. Why can't I plate solve to a planet?
Well, the movement of the planets is really sort of a different number. It's not like a sidereal rate. So you've got an issue of whether your software can actually compensate for all that. It probably can if you had like a monstrously wide field camera, but these planetary cameras are so small that it just doesn't work.
Sure.
And the planets aren't always in the same part of the sky every year.
Oh no,
on
right.
every day.
Yeah, right.
So, where a star on March 11th, next year on March 11th, is going to be in the same spot.
Exactly.
All right. So what we got here is, all right.
Good Lord.
All right. So I'm going to plug my camera. Here's the camera. You see it here?
Right.
Yep.
There it is. Okay. All right. So it's got a UV IR cut filter on it. And so we're just going to put it in.
Nice little plug there, Dan.
And then we're going to USB 3 it in. All right. And the software that I like to use is SharpCap. You can use FireCapture, but I like SharpCap, but either one's fine.
Okay.
All right. So
now, are you using a color camera? Which camera are you using?
Mars 2C.
Okay.
I plugged my camera into the Ethernet port.
Now, do you use a atmospheric distortion corrector? Since you're using a color camera, do you use an ADC? Okay.
Absolutely.
Now that's always one of my challenges is that ADC, trying to get it right.
Well, what we'll do is I'll try to get you. I'll show you sort of how to use it here. It's sort of hard. You got to play with it on a night where you got like what? Keep what's there. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So you got to play with those on a night where it's bad seeing, so you can get them lined up pretty good.
Dial it up.
Yeah. So what we've got here is a centered Jupiter in this wide field eyepiece. Then I went to a more magnified eyepiece, got it in the center. Then I put the camera in, and that's what we're seeing right here. Now we're out of focus, and we're blown up on gain and everything. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to the size. We're at 1936 by 1100. We need to bring that down to about 800 by 600. And so we'll bring that down, and then we'll put it in the box over here. And then I'm going to manually focus this. So I've got to,
Okay.
can we turn it to the side here, Kel, so I can look? All right. Now, the gain is way too high. So I'm going to go over here to this slider on the far right side. It says analog gain. I'm just going to bring it down. And now we got, look what we got sitting there.
Beautiful.
There you
All
go.
right, so you want to look down here in the bottom right at the histogram. You always want it to be at least about halfway. So what we're going to do is push the gain up just a little bit. Yeah, get it about right there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in up here at the top. You can zoom in, make it like 125. And then this way you can see the focus. Now, here, I'm going to put my motorized focuser on it. And we'll just take a look and get it focused up live so you can see it. Can y'all see it live okay?
Yeah, we see it.
Yeah,
great.
so far so good. Great.
All right, blurry, that's the wrong way, right?
Yeah.
That's what I tell people when we do observing events. I say there's only two ways you can turn the eyepiece. If it gets worse, you got to turn it the other way. And believe it or not, that still doesn't work sometimes.
I
Okay,
think I
now
just
we're
saw the
gonna-
transit right in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I'm
yeah.
starting to see the bands. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm seeing the bands. Yeah.
I see the transit too.
It's coming
Yeah.
in
I
and
see the
out.
moon. Yeah. I see that transit
Right.
moon. Yep. There it is.
There.
Yeah. Right there. I see the transit.
All right, so I'm focused. Right,
Okay.
so this is what we got to do. We're going to move now over here in the top right. You see, this is a region of interest. So I just want to put the Jupiter in the center. And then I'm going to actually move the capture area smaller to 640 by 480. And the reason is the smaller the capture area, the faster your frame rate is going to go at the bottom.
Yeah.
All right. So what we're going to do here is hit camera. We're going to hit, capture, start capture. And we're going to go, well, you got to label it.
Yeah.
It's not Saturn. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 1 minute and 10 seconds, only because there's a shadow. And the problem with shadow transits is that if you go longer than about 1:10, the shadow will blur and it won't be round anymore.
It'll streak. Yeah, it'll
Gotcha.
start to elongate.
Yeah, it'll
Gotcha.
streak.
Good to know.
Yeah, so real important to on Jupiter just go 1:10, and we're getting 236 frames per second in the bottom here.
Yep.
We're already at 7,000. We're rolling.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
That's that Mars
You
C2
are.
is a great camera
Boy,
because
that thing's hauling.
when you crop
Oh,
that
yeah.
thing down, the frame rates just skyrocket. It's really good. And that's with the advanced AR, right? Window on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you definitely want to have a UV IR cut window on it because you don't want that deep IR to blur everything.
Yep.
All right, so we got 10 more seconds here, and we got the capture. And there we go.
How many frames
So
total
this-
was that?
17,000, something like that.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Okay.
That's insane.
Yeah, right. So now we're going to launch
Auto stacker.
4.
Yeah.
We're going to open it up. And where's my gotta get to the where's the desktop? Hang on here. How do I get to my desktop from this?
I can't see. Probably you got to go to the C drive, then users.
Yeah. Oh, it's under users?
Yeah. And then go into your name,
There
and
it
then
is.
there you go.
Yeah. Desktop.
There it is.
I still don't see it. What's happening? Let's see. All right, there's sharp. Let me just drag one in here and see if that'll work. There's the SCR file. There it is. Okay, I just dragged it. Okay, so here we are. You want to make sure it's double stack, automatic, dynamic background, planet. All the defaults for the program come up good except for double stack. So you want to go ahead and hit double stack.
All right.
And then we want to hit analyze. Now, while it's doing this, we're going to go back and take a look and see if it's getting worse or better. It seems like it's getting a little.
But you can see how
All right,
far
so
the
then-
shadows moved.
Yeah, you can.
Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the ADC, and I'm going to show you. All right, so see, whoop, I took it off to the side there. Let me get it in a bigger shot. Okay, so you see how I moved the ADC, and it's now yellow on the
Yep.
top here, and it's sort of
Bluish kind of.
what you want to do is you want to move that up, and you want to move the levers until the blue and the red are gone.
You got a reflection
Okay.
on your screen.
All right, so that looks pretty good. Let's see. I can see just a little blue on the top there. Let me see. So we're getting a little ADC workout here. I don't know. What do y'all see? Is this?
I do see a little bit of a fringe, but but I really can't tell. I can't tell very much from.
It's probably hard
this.
to tell from our
From
vantage
YouTube
point.
too.
Yeah.
It's, YouTube
Yeah.
squashes
From the
things a little
YouTube,
bit.
Oh yeah.
they do.
Okay. All right. So now we're back on AutoStacker. This is the quality graph. Generally, you want to be where the 50% marker goes over. Now, the seeing's not real good net right now. But as we see up here, we did 16,000 frames. So if we just, this is 4,000 frames just to this first quarter bar here. So we'll do 25%, and we'll hit RGB align. What this will do is this will align the RGB channels if you don't have atmospheric dispersion corrector. So it's always good to have that checked anyway, just in case something slips through. All right, and so over here, all we want to do is hit place points in the grid. That's too many, so we're going to clear. All right, and get up here and get it less. Now, here we go. All right. Yeah, that's about right. You can add some more, but that'll be good for now. And then you just hit stack. So it's going to stack. Then we get to go back and look. And so on nights of really good seeing, you'll see this, and you'll be recording as you're doing your stack. You'll say, "Wow, that turned out great," and so spend like 30 minutes, just recording. Now it's gotten more blurry here where the shadow is. You can see where my finger is there. It's just it's just not really hanging with us tonight. The forecast was below average seeing, so we didn't do too bad for right here. You have any questions about the interface, the Sharp Cap?
No, I love Sharp Cap. I think it's I'm a Nina person, but I still love Sharp Cap. If I do Planetary, I'll probably do Sharp Cap.
Yeah.
And,
So
I
up
love
here,
their
you want to
3-point
record.
line.
Yeah, you want to record in the SER file, which is
Okay.
important. Your color space. Just go ahead and do raw 8. Don't really want to do 16-bit. Doesn't really help you. Makes your files really big, and it doesn't really help you.
Yep.
So, and then down here on your image control, now look, you see how I've got the histogram balanced here? All right, let's say that you're first starting out as a planetary imager. And why can't I get these off? Oh, okay, here we go. So let's say that it comes up like that. You'll see people that have these yellow images a lot, and that's because they don't have enough blue channel pushed up. Now you can hit auto, and that'll help a lot. But if you look here, you got, this is the white, this is the sum of the white, this is red and green, and this is blue. And you can see that blue is deficient. So we can change the blue, add the blue back until all of the colors are pretty much on top of themselves. And that's going to give you the color balance. Yeah, same thing up here with the red.
Now,
if you don't have enough red,
from
you see how
we
you
have a.
So you have a.
That's pretty interesting. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah. That's what you want to do. Is you want to move your red and blue sliders. Your green slider should be commensurate with the white one. I've got it a little bit elevated here, but that's so the green and the white are pretty much the same, or you want them in the same area. But yeah, you can play around with this, and you can see how it actively changes. And if you capture it out of balance, it's extremely difficult to fix it in post. So you really want to make sure that you do it right here. So you can see down here, I've got the red and the blue low, and the green is the dominant channel right here, and you can see it's got a little greenish hue. So you just want to bring that back up, and then there you go. Yeah, so down here you just want that to be balanced up. Okay, so it looks like we're through with Registax.
That's a good tip.
I mean, not Registax.
Not Registax, yeah. Flashback there. You're flashbacking.
I'm flashbacking. Okay, so Registax 6. We're just gonna load this up, and we're gonna take a look.
While that's loading, then Mike has a question here. He was wondering how big of a difference is there between one-shot color and mono for Planetary?
Well, 15 years ago, there was a reasonable difference. So there's not really a difference today because of two reasons. Number one, the color cameras are super low noise now, so you don't get any chroma noise, you don't get any color noise like you used to with the older cameras. Secondly, if you're oversampling, you're going to oversample to beyond the scene. So even though the buyer arrays two green, one red, one blue, each one of those colors is going to be sampled to the max that the atmosphere is going to give you. The beauty of a one-shot color is it's instantly color balanced, like we had there, where we change the sliders and we make it look good.
Yep.
If you do RGB separate, you've got to stack those in separately and do the color balance, and sometimes it can be difficult. But the biggest problem is you have to change filters. You have to capture in your red filter, then capture in your green filter, then capture in your blue filter. And the big problem with that is you've only got 2 minutes. So you've got 25 seconds per filter, and guess what? You got to refocus for each filter. So
you're not going to have as big a number of frames to choose from.
Yeah, exactly. And the color cameras now are just so fantastic. It's just a no-brainer. I mean, if you want to make it more difficult for yourself, you can. You can get a mono, you know. But there's no real reason. Huh?
Sure.
I need that.
You need what? Oh, that. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so what we're going to do here, we've opened Registax and we've loaded the image. Now, what I think is really critical, wavelets. You open the wavelets and you go here to the Gaussian setting, and it goes up by 2 every time you click it, and you want to get up to about 22, 20 or 22. You go over here to your number 2 slider and push it way over. And there you go.
Oh,
And you can just stair step it back.
Oh, wow.
Of course, that's too much there. So, yeah, so I got the settings a little bit aggressive, but you can see the shadow, and then of course the moon is round. And this is a typical image that you're going to get when the seeing is below average. It's not super sharp. You can still see the SEB and the NEB, but it's just it's you're not going to have fine detail come through. So, but anyway, so you see how that worked, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, there you go. So there's the capture that's live.
Nice.
And we'll just head back in, and I can just do the presentation.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, is that good?
that's
That's
amazing.
fantastic. That is absolutely amazing.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna head over.
You saw it live here, ladies and gentlemen, on
Yes,
AstroWorld
yes.
TV.
Yes. You wanted Planetary, you got Planetary. So I hope y'all have been
Yeah.
taking some notes.
Absolutely.
I know
All
I
right,
have
so now
been.
I'm back. All right, super. So
That's awesome.
So here's the key is that you're able to you're able to, you saw how fast that was, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all of
quick.
you guys who do deep sky imaging, my God, you got to set up, you got to get polar aligned, especially if you're doing, if you're setting up yourself. I mean, granted, I don't have to polar align because I'm already set out here, but there's just a whole bunch of setup. There's a whole bunch of capture time. There's just a whole bunch of, you got to do darks and flats and all this other stuff. You saw how fast that was.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Sure
if
did.
you're in the city, if you're in a big city, this is a no-brainer for you to be doing this, whether you have to sort of tote your scope out or whether you have to roll it out or whether you have to, I used to leave my scope set up in the backyard when I lived in Atlanta with a 360 cover on it.
That's
So
what I do
I just,
here in Springfield,
so-
Virginia. So that's what I do.
yeah, so you just raring to go. And the beauty is
Yeah.
it saves your marriage because in 30 minutes you're done. You don't tell your wife, I'm going to be gone for 5 hours in the yard, screwing around. Doing whatever.
That's awesome.
Nowadays, you can set it, forget it with Nina. So
Yeah, Nina's really changed everything.
Yep.
We've got a lot of people that are automated out here at the Deer Lake Astronomy Village. I'm really still hands-on, believe it or not. I deep sky image with a modified Sony camera. I love to focus manually. I love to frame it myself by using the hand paddle. I mean, I'm just old school. I used to do all that stuff. I used to guide. I used to automatic focus. I did all that, but I just really like the visceral nature of being there and touching the telescopes and stuff. I don't know. That just resonates with me. But everybody does it their way. It's what's beautiful about this hobby. You do it your way.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Now, you have you've been doing this for so long. You said you also mentioned you've been in Sky. You've had some images posted in Sky and Telescope. How many star parties have you been to? How many star parties do you think you've been to?
I don't know. I've probably been to, 15 or 20.
That's a good number.
Will tell you, Yeah, I will tell you that you need to go to the Winter Star Party.
Yeah.
If you've never been to the Winter Star Party, go.
That's
It
the one
happens in
Key
February,
West.
so it
Yep.
just yeah, it's on Summerland Key, and it's just below Marathon, and it is. I'll tell you what, planetary imaging. If you have great seeing, you can instantly become a great planetary imager, and the great seeing is in Key West. Okay, so if you wanted to just cut to the front of the line, get yourself a big C14 in Key West and start planetary imaging, because the seeing is just
There you
lambda.
go.
That's a long
And
haul
it's-
for that big bad
You ain't
boy.
kidding.
Yeah,
You're gonna take the
exactly.
auto train for that
Right.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
Well,
sure.
Damien Peets used to fly down to Barbados from England. He used to pack everything up and go to Barbados for 2 weeks and
God bless him.
produce fabulous planetary images. Well, the British, they get what, 15 or 30 weeks of vacation a year, so he's able to do that.
Yeah.
But for us, you get 1 or 2 weeks and your wife's looking cockeyed at you like, well, we're not going to.
Yeah, where do you think you're going with that?
Well, yeah, exactly.
But if you can go to the Winter Star Party, and I'll tell you what, the Winter Star Party is so great because of the fantastic seeing. Well, not only that, you get to see objects low that you can't see, like Eta Carina, the big
Yeah.
nebula.
Mhm.
Oh my God, that's worth it. But planetary wise, the laminar seeing can be phenomenal. Now, I'll give you a good example. You saw on that capture there how the shadow was coming in and going out, sort of coming into focus, but mostly
Yep.
going out of focus. About 20% of the time you could see it, like, oh, there's the dot. Oh, it's blurring out.
Yep.
Well, down there in times of excellent seeing, nothing moves. I had Saturn in my 20-inch Star Master the size of a quarter, and we used to have people come up and look, and people would look at you and say, you've got a photograph hanging from the front of your telescope. That's not real. That's not real. And of course, they go to the front of the scope and say, where is it? It's that good in Key West. What'll happen in Key West is, how like you get one ripple, like you're looking at something underwater and like one wave will go across, just like one, like blue.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's what'll happen down there when you're looking at the planets in Key West. It's like you'll be sitting there and just this one little distortion will go over and you'll be like, wow,
Wow.
outrageous. I mean, you can go up 900, 1200x. So
Wow.
if you love planets and you love deep sky and you've never seen Eta Carina, man, go to the Winter Star Party. Highly,
There you go.
highly recommended.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you could just fly
Bucket
down
list.
there and don't even bring anything because everything's going to be there already.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. That's right.
just like if you've gone to any other star party around, I mean, 99.9% of the people are very friendly and want to share the sky with you. There's a 0.1% that get away from me. But but almost everybody will be like, yeah, come on, I want to show everybody everything I can. And it's really cool to go down there.
With those antisocial people, they don't want to get served. Their ex-wife's after them or something.
Yeah, or the IRS is coming, to
That's right. It's like, stay away. I don't want to talk to anybody.
I'm not here. I'm not here.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I'll tell you what, the Winter Star Party is fabulous, just fabulous. Now, I give a talk every year at the Enchanted Skies Star Party in New Mexico. Man, that's a real good one. Really, really good transparent skies. If you want to see galaxies, you want to see deep sky, the transparency out there is fantastic. The seeing is not. So don't go out there for planetary. You're not going to get real good planetary images out west. As a matter of fact, believe it or not, the majority of planetary imagers that produce great results are east of the Mississippi. There's only one guy out west that produces a lot of stuff. Now, of course, you can get up at Mount Wilson. You can get on top above Los Angeles and get some laminar seeing out there that produces good images. So California is a little bit different in the laminar. But man, if you're at medium elevation, you get fantastic transparency, New Mexico, Colorado, but the jet stream will lay on you. I mean, I went to the there was the Antique Telescope Society meeting, and there was a guy who had a 178 astrophysics refractor, and we could not see the Cassini division in Saturn.
Wow.
Because it was
Seeing
so
so
It's
wobbly.
just so washed
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, so bad.
Yeah.
It was just blurred out. But see, that's another problem that happens is the difference in Key West versus the difference in out there in New Mexico or Colorado is when the sun goes down, the temperature just torpedoes. And when the temperature torpedoes down, that heat just waffles up and interferes with the seeing. When you're in Key West and it's 83 and the sun goes down, it goes like to 80 and then it just stays there. So it's like super stable. Nothing, there's not a lot of heat going out. So that's something you have to consider. That's why it's difficult to do really good planetary images in the dead of winter, even in Georgia. The planets in their rotation will eventually move to spring, and eventually it'll get back to the summer, where you get the meridian, or where you get the oppositions are going to be closer in the spring and the summer, where you get less temperature variation. But in the dead of winter, like when Jupiter was at opposition, I mean, my God, it was right in the dead of winter. It's going down to 12, 17 degrees for like that one bad week we had where it was super cold, and you can't do high resolution planetary that cold. It just doesn't work. So yeah, you want it to be the temperature disparities to not be that good. Now, that being said, you can get into a crazy rare situation like a triple transit on Jupiter. All right, something that's just happens once every 10 years. Well, of course you want to image that regardless of the seeing, because you want to get it. You might get lucky. It may clear up for 30 seconds for enough to you to pull a good image out of it, a rabbit out of a hat there. So any sort of crazy transits and stuff, you want to go ahead and do it, even if the seeing's not that good. But planetary really allows you to pick and choose when you go out, how much time you spend. And man, the first time as a planetary imager, when you get that really good seeing and you stack that image up and you use that wavelet and it pops out at you sharp, man, there's no feeling better than that. That's just like, wow. That's something that people dreamed of 30 years ago to get images like that.
I live in 20 miles away from New York City, so my seeing is like 4 arc seconds. So I mean, it's pretty bad.
Yeah. When I gave a talk up at NEAC, we had Christopher Go from the Philippines.
Yep.
And the Philippines has super laminar seeing, and he lives on like the 30th floor above the water, so he's even above the local seeing that's down below. So he's in perfect seeing all the time. And so he came there and he was going to do a live capture, and I told him, I said, "Are you sure you want to do that?" Yeah, I want to do it. He got the live capture. Must have been 50 people. Just like you said, 4 arc seconds. He couldn't even focus. I mean, it just nothing came into focus, and he was flabbergasted. He was like, "Wow," and I was like, "Yeah, well." And there's a guy, Red Lion, who lives up there in Pennsylvania, who goes to NEAC all the time. He's a planetary imager, and he completely understands and sympathizes with your situation.
Oh man, well I'm an hour and a half away from suffering in NEAC, so I'm an hour and a half. I'll be there. I'm already packing stuff up. I got 2 tables at NEAF this year.
Oh, you do?
Oh yeah. AstroWorld. I don't know if you noticed AstroWorld TV, which Eric and I, along with Dave, who a little bit later came in, have been doing this for about 5 or 6 years now. And it turned into a retail shop. So I have my own retail store. I got everything you could think of. So
you know how little money you make as a retailer.
Oh yeah, I make my 4 cents a month. So no, yeah. So this is not the bread and butter, but it's a passion of mine. So I started to do it.
I owned Telescope Atlanta. I started Telescope Atlanta in like 2000. and kept it open until 2008. And when the 2008 crash sort of wiped everything. And I was a cartographer, and I had a map store, and I just had a telescope section in my map store. But it's like you could never open just a telescope shop on those margins. It's impossible. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you churned like OPT did, have massive volume or something, you could make it with online. But boy, if the numbers that you get, and then people want you to open it. And it's like, well, you can't open it because then it's an open box, and then I don't make anything.
Exactly.
Terrible. It's terrible. It's a terrible. I don't. Yeah, they just don't. You don't make much. It is for you to be selling scopes is true passion.
Oh yeah.
So,
congratulations. To me, it's all about helping people. You know what I mean? And that's what it is. Is if I was in it to make $1 million, I'd probably do something else. But
right. Yeah, well, that's good. I may come up and see you if I come up there. I haven't.
There's no brick and mortar, but definitely come see us at Neve. There's no brick and mortar. It's online only. But
right.
But that was the shameless plug. So
that's fine. Any other questions on Planetary? Real quick. I mean,
let's
take a
look.
I'd like to answer a few questions before I hit the little program I've got.
Oh yeah.
Sure. Let me take a look.
That way people can get their questions answered, and then when I start the program, if they feel like they're going to fall asleep, they can leave.
So Dan,
actually, I'm fairly interesting. That the presentation is fairly interesting, but still, it's how
I hear you. It's a presentation.
Go. Yeah. Right.
Now, how important is it how important is an ADC? Is it something that you can get away with, or get away with not having, or is it something that you really should put into consideration and have that in your arsenal?
There's a lot of diagrams about where the separation happens. Basically, if the planet that you're imaging, my rule of thumb is if it's about 55 degrees up in altitude, you're probably okay without an ADC. Now, Saturn for the past few years was like at 30 or 35. I mean, it was like where Polaris was, and you just had to have it then because the separation was terrible. A lot of people use them all the time. I take mine out. Now, I left mine in here because I knew I was going to show you how to do it. But generally, I can take mine out if it's directly overhead. And there is some consideration about how many pieces of glass you have in the light path, because that is a prism. And it's a rotatable prism that pulls the light back together. And if you're already high enough, I mean, if like Mars is like 80 degrees right now on the meridian, I mean, if you're already high enough and you don't want it, well, why take a chance of any sort of degradation going through it? So my answer would be take it out when you don't need it and put it in when you need it. And generally, 55, 50, below that, try to use it. Experiment. If you find you need it at 55 to 60, then keep it in. But you'll sort of know when you image enough, you'll start to see it. And you'll say, well, I better put it in, so.
So I have a question. I mean, you're obviously using a C11 or
14.
Right, C14. Are you using a Barlow, and do you use a Barlow for, like, say, Venus and Mars, the smaller planets, or I mean, Jupiter and Saturn are pretty big, and maybe you don't, but
well, it all comes down to sampling, and I took out my formulas for my presentation because that will instantly put people to sleep when they see math. The presentation is like, they're gone. So, but to answer your question, well, it's a two-part answer. The first part is back in the day when we used to use a 618 chip, the pixel size was 5.86, and we used a 2x Barlow or a 2.25 Barlow. If you have the pixel size, then you have to have the Barlow to keep the same sampling rate. So one of the problems that happens with people is they'll buy a Planetary camera. It'll be like 2.9 pixels or 2.5. They've even got, my buddy next door just bought a camera that's got 2.0 pixels in it. You don't want to use a Barlow in that at all because you're wildly oversampling. Then you want to keep your sampling rate about 1/3 of your resolving rate of your telescope. So a C14 is 0.35. So you want to sample at like 0.12 or 0.13 arc seconds per pixel, and they have the calculators out there that will you just put your pixel size and your focal length in, and you'll see instantly that if you put a 2x Barlow in and double your focal length to 8 meters, that you're going to be sampling at like 0.05 arc seconds per pixel. And that doesn't help you at all. As a matter of fact, what it does is it prevents registacks from sharpening the image when you're oversampled. When you start doing registack sharpening, you start pushing those wavelets and it stays soft because you're oversampled. So you definitely want to, if you have a C14, if you're using a modern Planetary camera like a Mars 2C, I use a 1.5 Barlow only when the seeing is good to very good. Tonight I didn't use a Barlow, so what you saw captured tonight was just straight 4 meters with the camera. And of course, the worse the seeing, you don't really want to use a Barlow because that really makes it worse. But when the seeing is excellent, and so like for example, let's say tonight we put the camera in, we focused it, and all three of y'all just went, "Wow, it's super sharp," you know. Well, then guess what? We could have taken it out and put a 1.5 Barlow in, magnified it more, refocused, and see if we maintain that sharpness. Then, if we do, great. Then we capture at the higher magnification. But generally speaking, you want to watch out. You don't want to get oversampled. Now, as far as Venus goes, you have to have a special Barlow that lets blue pass. It's called a
Venus.
Yeah, it's a what's that Barlow called? It's I can't remember the name of it right now.
PowerMate?
It's
PowerMate?
No, it's a particular name. It's the name of the glass that's used, and it's if you use a regular Barlow, it will block the blue from Venus. It'll cut it off. So you need to use the I'll think about the Barlow. It'll pop in my head. No, that's Seabird Optical. He's real good. It's I can't remember the name, but it's a particular type of glass that allows for the blue to go through the Barlow. That's for Venus. You definitely want to have one of those. And I don't like Venus because it's just nondescript. Some people do, but I like surface detail. I love surface detail on Mars and Jupiter. That's just my thing.
Venus is kind of cool because it has phases like the moon. So a lot of people like that.
Yeah. A lot of people like the phases.
Where you can catch Venus in crescent phase and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Now, okay, I've got a question here from Matt. He was asking a 585 versus a 662 sensor. Or do you have a particular sensor that you think works best, or what type of camera?
Well, I think the Mars 2C, the Player One camera, I've got the Mars 2C. I think it's got the 662 chip in it. What you want is the latest Starvis. You want the Sony Starvis version 2 chip. And about a year ago, this was the only one. Well, they make a bigger one. It's a Starvis 2. It covers more area. You could get that if you want bigger real estate, like to do the moon, or wider. You want to get like moons, like way out. But make sure when you look the chip up that it says Starvis 2. That's the latest and greatest.
Now, I'm just taking a look here. I'm on astronomy.tools, because you had mentioned, the resolution and matching, and trying to not be so oversampled. Now, me
Yeah.
personally, I have a C8. All right. So I have a C8. And even if I'm using, and I'm looking here, if I put a Barlow in that thing with, say, a Mars 2C or any other type of, the oversampling is insane. Now, but it says if I bend, then it gets a little bit, it starts, that sampling gets a lot better. But
that's correct.
Is that something? Yeah, but so is that something when you have these smaller, these maybe shorter focal length scopes, something like a C8 versus a C14? Is that something that I should consider or others should consider if you versus if you're saying you maybe not having that Barlow is going to cause too much oversampling and it's going to wash things out? Is that something that should be under consideration? Is it a good idea for Planetary to do binning?
You can do binning. That's a CMOS camera. Back in the day, we used to have CCD cameras, and you would bin, and it would actually make a larger pixel. So if you bin 2x2, you'd make a large pixel out of 4 pixels, and it would mechanically bin and give you the sensitivity. Today, it's more a combination of software-driven binning. There's a couple of different ways you can do the software bin. I can't remember what the drop-down menu is. However, yes, to answer your question, that is a way of effectively stepping down if you don't want to remove the Barlow out of the train. So you can just image at bin 2x2, and if the seeing is good, change it to 1x1. So instead of doing what I suggested, which is image with no Barlow, then the seeing's real good, put a Barlow in and refocus, you could already just go ahead and drop down. So that is a way of going about it. However, some cameras respond differently to binning. I think the Mars 2C does a good job of changing up binning. I do know that some of the other chips don't respond as well. So I think it's going to be, you have to try it, when you get it. I can't remember which ones have trouble with it, but that is a way of addressing the oversampling is binning it 2x2. Yes.
Okay. That's good to know. That's good to know. Let me take a look, see what other questions we have here.
I think Norm said the Batter U Venus filter works for him.
Okay.
Utilizes dielectric multi-coating on optically polished shock glass.
Okay.
I can't.
Which cameras have the StarVis 2?
Yeah, I can't remember what that Barlow is, but you got to make sure if you're going to use a Barlow that it's the one that has the UV pass.
Yeah.
The filter he's talking about passes down to like 390 nanometers.
It's
I think
350.
And that's
said.
what.
Yeah.
350. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want that for Venus for sure.
Yeah.
And you don't want to use the UV-IR filter because your UV filter will cut at 400, so you cut yourself out. And then you don't want to use a Barlow that doesn't have that glass pass because then it'll cut it out as well too. And God, what's that glass? God, I can't believe I can't remember.
A lot of the Player 1 cameras come with StarVis sensors, so just so you know.
Yep.
If you go into
StarVis 2.
Yeah, the StarVis 2s, yeah.
Yeah, so like the ZWO has the ASI 678, which is 2 micron pixels, and StarVis 2 tech.
Yeah.
And for Player 1, you have the Mars C2, which is a 662 sensor, or the Uranus C, which is a 585 sensor. Those both have StarVis 2. Sony StarVis 2 technology. So just FYI, because
you definitely want to have those.
Okay.
Now the technology has gotten so good that you can still do good Planetary with older chips. I'm not saying that it's a make or break. So if you have an older chip and you're going to lose your house if you buy a 662 chip, I mean, don't do that, obviously. But considering these cameras are $200. I mean, my God, this is the cheapest. I mean, these are inexpensive dollar figures.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know,
really.
versus
Yeah, the grand scheme of
versus what
things, there
what you
really
spend
nothing
out,
to
right?
it.
Yep.
No, that's awesome. Let's
Yeah,
let's
so
see
it
if
looks
there's any other
like
questions.
Dan Altair has a 678C,
Yep.
which is also
Norm was
the
asking
Starvis
to a
2,
fused silica
and it
Barlow.
has the
That's it. Fused silica. That's
HGC
it.
and LCG support
Fused
on
silica.
chip.
Fused silica. That's it. That's what you want.
There you go.
Fused silica. That's right.
Fused silica Barlow. There you go.
Yes.
Very good. All right. So that's not so. All right, Norm. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Let's take a look. I want to see if there are any other planetary questions that we can answer or ask here to Dan. And right now, we don't see any. So if you wanted to go ahead and get and move on to your presentation, that's totally cool.
Yep.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is just hit this and just tell me if it shows up. Ready?
Yep.
Uh-oh, what is this doing now?
Just choose entire screen.
Yep. Choose entire screen.
Okay. All right.
Not yet.
I hit entire screen.
And then click OK, I think.
And then click OK.
The share button is grayed out. Yeah. Entire screen. Oh, do I have to click it? Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Yep. There you go.
There we go.
Yep. Now
There we go. Awesome. Now you can go ahead and switch on over. Yeah.
There we go.
Got it.
Perfect.
Now we see it.
All right. So you see it?
Perfect.
Yep.
Yep.
And
Perfect.
the Rodney Dangerfield in the
Rodney Dangerfield.
I love it.
That's right. That's me. I am
I
the
love
Rodney
it.
Dangerfield, buddy. There's no two ways about it. Okay, so I'm just gonna. Can everybody hear me? Okay,
Yep.
Am I
We
good?
can hear you fine. Yep.
Yep. You good?
Okay, so I'm just gonna scroll through here. This is the observatory that you were just looking at on the capture.
Wow.
So that's with the roof open and all the junk that's in it. So I just thought you might want to see a daytime picture. So,
Wow. That's
yeah, I've
something.
collected a few things, right? Okay, so basically, and this is really, really important to emphasize here, is how critical it is for people who want to get into astronomy and they want to get into imaging to understand that planetary imaging lets you beat light pollution. So if we look over here, on the left here, we got Atlanta, and look at that light dome, how bad it goes out. You see over here, Augusta, and I live like right in here in the middle, and there's a so you can see that there's just not a lot of places that you can get away from the light pollution. Light pollution kills you on a couple of levels. First of all, deep sky, obviously, as you know, although that can be mitigated somewhat with some aggressive light pollution filters and imaging now. That's starting to change. But visual astronomy, let's say you want to look through your telescope and just look through the eyepiece. Well, you're not going to get deep sky objects.
You're limited to planets. Yeah.
Yeah, you're almost limited to planets.
Yeah.
So a lot of people want to get into imaging, and guess what? When you have situations like this, you want to do planetary imaging because it's immune to light pollution. The planets are bright enough to overcome the light pollution. So here is an image I took in 2012. So this image is 13 years old.
Wow.
And down here you can see detail on Ganymede, the moon here. You can see the Mare on it down here, which I think is pretty damn cool. And this is one that was taken in 2022. Now, what's interesting is take a look at these two images. I'm going to go back and forth. Anybody see anything different that's happening? There's a couple of
The
things.
second red spot underneath the big red spot, the earlier one.
Yeah,
Oh, is
this
that where
red
the
spot.
comet hit?
No, that's red spot junior, and that runs around at a different rate than the
Okay.
red spot. All right, so it just sort of scoots at its own rate. But look at the GRS, how big it is here, and then in the next one, look how small it's gotten.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's shrinking. The great red spot is shrinking. Now, what's also interesting is here above the north band here, all of this area here. Can you see my mouse?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Okay, look what just happened to disappear
Oh, wow.
in
Look at that.
2022. All right, so the critical nature of planetary imaging is it's dynamic. There's always something changing, and when you record images like this and you send them in to the British Astronomical Association or any of the the ALPO group or any of these other groups that do science with these images, you can get your image published in a scientific study of what's going on, and they'll refer to one of your images. Okay, so all of a sudden you're scientifically relevant. Now you can get an image in and feel like you contributed to some real science. Also, what is critical about this is it's not going to be that way next year or the next year after that. So you're doing live. Okay, if I want to image M51, chances are it's going to look identical 10, 15, 100 years from now, unless there's a supernova, which is just a dot. I can image M51, so going to look the same. The planets are not going to look the same because they're dynamically changing all the time. So you cannot go back, back here in 2012 and image Jupiter. This is the way it looked. It's in the books. It's over.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. So that's an appeal to be able to do something right on the. Okay, so planetary imaging. This is real good that we did the demonstration first, because all of this sort of comes into focus here. You need a reasonably sized telescope. You don't need something super large, because I'm going to show you an image you can do all the way down to a 6-inch refractor. But what's important is the bigger the telescope, the better. So you really want to have, you can get a 9 1/4, get one. If you can get an 11, get one. I wouldn't go to a C14 unless you absolutely master everything and you want to get that big a scope. I mean, a C11 is like the sweet spot on size and performance and cool down and everything. Secondly, you need a mount that tracks. You saw I had a Paramount MX. It tracks in right ascension. You need a planetary camera. You saw that with a little UVIR cut filter. You need a capture computer, USB 3 and SSD. You saw me plug it in, turn it on, boom, it's there. And you need some free software to capture, Sharp Cap or Fire Capture. So those are just sort of the minimum requirements. Now, why do you want to stack the video? Well, because signal to noise, signal increases by the square root of the number of exposures. So when you take a frame out of a capture, it's noisy because you've applied some gain to it. And you saw, in the very beginning when we opened up an auto stacker, the signal that came up there is a little bit crunchy. All right, when you stack 5,000 or 10,000 frames, you really increase the signal to noise. And this is an example of what happens. The signal emerges from the noise because you're stacking, and it increases by the square root. So if you stack 5,000 images, you've increased your signal to noise ratio by a factor of 70. So that's why it's important to stack lots of frames. Get that camera going as fast as you can. Okay, so mounts and track. Everybody's familiar with an equatorial mount, but I think it's important to show people who may be just starting out, this is what an equatorial mount looks like, and you really need to have an equatorial mount. Now, there are some exceptions. If you have an LX200, you really don't want to do planetary imaging in Altaz mode, which is going to be the scope on the left. That's Altaz mode, because you're going to get something called field rotation. And after about 10 seconds, you know how we talked about, stuff getting blurry if you capture too long of a string. Well, things get really blurry because the image starts to rotate. If you have an LX200, get the wedge on the left. I know it looks precarious and it's heavy as hell, but if you already have that system, go ahead and get the wedge. You really want to have a wedge. Now, let's say you got a Dobsonian. Best thing to get is an equatorial platform. They sell these all over the place. Third-party people have them that manufacture them. So you can just put your regular Dob. You can buy a $600 Dob, like a 10-inch or a 12-inch Dob, take it out of its box and put it on an equatorial platform and polar align it. And when you rock this thing, you pull it to one side, and as you can see, it rocks to the other side. Gives you about 80 minutes of tracking. And it's an equatorial track, so you get no field rotation. So if you have a big Dob, and a lot of people do, 8, 10, 12, 14-inch big Dob, get you an equatorial platform, and that's the ticket to ride right there. Okay, very important thing to do with planetary imaging, just like deep sky. Man, you gotta have good polar alignment, because if it drifts, what's going to happen is that planet's going to drift off the chip. You can manually move it back in with the hand paddle. So as it drifts out, you can move it back in. But over time, if you're constantly moving it back in a lot, you're going to get blur. You're going to take what could potentially be a great image and blur it because it's drifting and you're rocking it back and forth. So really important to get polar alignment well. I use a PoleMaster, although the software has really gone great these days. You can do 3-star, 4-star alignment with software. Nina does that stuff. So, I mean, but if you don't want to use any of that software and you're just manually using your mount, setting it up, a PoleMaster is a great way to go about it. It will get you polar aligned super fast, 5 minutes, 10 minutes the first time, 5 minutes each time after that. And when you're dialed in super polar aligned, then the planet just sits on the chip. It doesn't drift off. And that's what you want. Okay.
Can I just ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
You go back to the last,
sure.
not that I'm offended or anything, but go to why is there a Prima Luce Lab logo on the front?
I don't know. I don't know. I just took that picture off the web.
I mean, I'm an Eagle fan, so don't get me wrong, but I just, I was like, I'm trying to figure out what is there that's from Prima Luce.
There must be an eagle on top of that setup.
There might be an eagle up there. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll cover that up. I'll block it out. So okay, so now we get into the flip mirror, and this is what happens is with the flip mirror, all it does is allow you to find the planet, get it dead center in the eyepiece, change out eyepiece, higher magnification, center it up, higher magnification, center it up. Then you flip the mirror, and it should be directly on the chip in the back. Flip mirrors are critical, especially for beginners. Now, I got it to where I just crouch under the scope and I can look up and see it now. And I've got a really long imaging train, so adding a flip mirror, I didn't really want to do that. But when you're first starting out, this is definitely the way to go. They're like $100, and they're 1 1/4, and they just work fantastic because you don't want to get under your scope. Most of the time when you planetary, you want it to be overhead, which means that you're going to be on the ground looking up through your scope. Very, very important to have a flip mirror so that you can stand over the eyepiece and get it centered and then flip the mirror. Okay, once again, motorized focuser. You saw me hook up my little motorized. I got the exact focuser here, and I just hook it up and just motorize it. Just go in and out manually, and you just focus live. But this is something that's really important because if you have a Schmidt-Cassegrain, when you focus the coarse focus knob, you get mirror flop, and the planet can go off the chip when you focus one way. So then you got to bring it back on the chip by focusing in one direction. This eliminates that mirror flop. So get you a Crayford focuser if you got an SCT. And then, of course, machine vision camera. This particular Player One, $199. Fantastic. It is the 662 chip. Super duper frame rate, faster frame rates with the region of interest. And you want to zoom in and get the faster frame rate. Okay, color versus mono. Okay, I've done comparisons with Rich Jekyll, my buddy, who's used to write for Sky and Telescope. As you can tell, we're imaging Mars, and we're comparing the color resolutional camera with his red, which is the highest resolution you're going to get on Mars is through your red filter. And hey, man, we had the same cameras. He was doing mono. I had the color camera. I mean, I may have been slightly better collimated than him. I don't know, but you're just not going to get. I mean, it's just not this idea that you're going to get 3 times the resolution and 3 times the signal. It's not correct. And I don't really have time to spend going down a cloudy night's rabbit hole explaining it. But basically, as you can see in the middle, time constraints, 40 seconds per channel in the RGB, and then you got to refocus each channel. So you're just better off to use a color camera. So a lot of people don't know what a color camera is. So I like to sort of take a second or two to show people what a color camera is. A color camera is a monochrome camera. It's just that the color filters have already been attached to the camera. So as you can see in this diagram here, this gray area here is the mono camera, and all of these are just micro color filters that are attached over each pixel. And you can see here on the right, you got twice as many green. You got 1 red, 1 blue, 1 red, and 2 green. That's the ratio. And this particular color filter array was done to create color off of the first digital cameras. It was done by Bruce Bayer. It's not Bayer, it's Bayer, in 1976. Now here's an example of it. When you pull off the cover slip of the camera, you can see right here, there's the little filters. And believe it or not, Sony and all these other companies, they manufacture all of these little teeny weeny red, green, blue filters right on top of the pixel. It's incredible. Just state-of-the-art manufacturing. Okay, so here he is, Bruce Bayer. He just died about, 10 years ago. He's the father of the Bayer array filter. That's what he looked like. And why did he do the Bayer array that way? Well, because the Bayer array is the mimics the human eye color sensitivity. And this is why color cameras get you such good color balance. If you balance them, you don't let them get wonky like I was showing you with the sliders. As long as you got the red, green, and blue pretty much balanced, you're going to reproduce basically what the human eye color sensitivity is. And you can see here that the green comes in strong, and the blue and the red are off to the side, are much less. Now, what's critical here is if you're a deep sky imager, is you can see that the red on the right is higher than the blue on the left. This is why they choke DSLR cameras in the red, and you have to modify them for use for astrophotography. They only let 20% of the hydrogen alpha at 656 through because there's an imbalance in the human eye. There's an imbalance that comes in, and they have to cut off that extra red so that they can color balance it. And so that sort of hurts you for deep sky. That's why you have to have all these. If you use a Canon or a Nikon or a Sony, you have to have a modifier where they take the filter array off the front. Now that's not a problem with planetary cameras because it's already been removed. So here's the patent. Believe it or not, this is the real patent in the United States Patent Office. Isn't that cool? July 20th, 1976. Wow. This is the patent given to Bruce Bayer at Eastman Kodak. Filed March 5th, 1975, and he got it just over a year later. That's his patent. And this is the actual patent in the patent office. What's cool here, this is his actual notes that he submitted. How about that? Handwritten notes, man. Back in the day, right? I mean, this is just crazy cool. Now, what's amazing, we still use these cameras today. The only cameras that don't use Bayer array cameras are broadcast cameras like television cameras. And the reason they use a separate RGB, they use a prism inside to split the light off into 2 separate sensors, 3 separate sensors, is because the skin tones, they need it to be for broadcast TV. The skin tone has to be a certain way. Otherwise, your iPhone, your Android phone, and any DSLR, they're all Bayer array cameras. They're all made that way, and they've been that way for a while. Okay, so here's some concepts we've got to worry about. We've got to worry about seeing, and I wanted people to see this because this is an example of bad seeing. As you can see, you got a lot of really hard blur, and the moon to the upper right, it looks like it's just a line drawing spinning around. It just never goes back to being round. And so this is a good example of this is just not good seeing. Now this could be below average to bad. I mean, I'm not going to say this is absolutely terrible, but it's below average to bad. And you're not going to get a lot out of here. You're just not going to get a lot of frames because two things happen. You can't accumulate enough good frames, and geometric distortion happens when these frames come through. You see how the great red spot up here is like moving it's sort of distorting. You get a lot of geometric distortion, and so even if you get a lot of good frames, the geometry is going to be off, and it's not going to be what you want. So reasonable seeing here. Now this is pretty reasonable. This is sort of what we had tonight, maybe a little bit worse. So we were in between bad and reasonable here. You can see how it sort of is sharpening up pretty damn good in the center here. Right in here, you can all of a sudden go, wow, look at how sharp it gets there. And you can see that the moon here goes from, that to being sort of a round circle for a reasonable amount of time. So you can get something out of this. You can produce a reasonable image. And then of course, good seeing, this is really sort of what you want, where you're seeing at least 50% of the frames look really good. I don't know, is that coming through for y'all? Good?
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So so you're wanting to see this, these little barges here come in pretty good resolution. You want to be able to see like the red spot here, the interior of the red spot's like, wow, you can see the stuff inside the red spot just sharpens up. And then of course your moon out here, spends a lot of time being around. So that's really how you sort of gauge. Yeah, just sort of gauge seeing. Now, Eric had asked earlier, what do you use for planning, and how do you forecast what the seeing is and everything? WinJupos is what you really, 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 really need to do. So download WinJupos, and what it will do is it will show you what is going on at a particular time. So tonight, this is not tonight, this is 2019, but tonight was really similar because we had the shadow over there in the center of the GRS had gone past, and Io is off to the side. So when you look it up, what this does is it allows you to pre-plan. You can go ahead and you can look ahead and say, wow, look at this shadow transit, or wow, look at this double shadow transit, or wow, look at this. There's all sorts of, I want to get the GRS. Is it going to be available, when I'm able to image, or is it going to be available, when it's directly overhead? So this is the key planning tool right here. WinJupos just automatically tells you what phase of the planet and what you're going to see when you look at it. Absolutely mandatory. Clear sky clock.
Awesome.
This is also critical. This will tell you seeing down here on the third row. Generally speaking, it's very accurate. AstroWorld apparently is using an even better algorithm now. Unfortunately, the guy that ran Clear Sky Clock, Attila Danko, he just passed away recently, and his wife is trying to keep it going. I don't know if she's going to be able to or not. I think she's trying, but I just don't know what the long-term viability of Clear Sky Clock is. AstroWorld has a seeing forecast, but like right here, you see right here, seeing forecast is supposed to be excellent between 10 and 1 o'clock in the morning. So that gives you a heads up that you're going to have reasonable seeing here, and it's supposed to get good. Now that can change. It can get good early, it can get good late, and it can get better in a wider spectrum, or you could get screwed. That's the way it is with the weather. Sometimes it just doesn't turn out that way. But this is definitely what you want to do. You don't want to be going out here when these colors are up, like white and baby blue. This just means it's seeing a stinko, and you're just really sort of going to waste your time. I also put this up here because you can forget about sleep when you get really hot with planetary imaging, because when the planets come around, they come up early in the morning. Like when the new apparition comes around, they start rising in the morning. And so when they rise up high enough to like where the meridian is, like they'll rise up and hit the meridian at like 5 in the morning. Well, you got to be out there because all the heat's dissipated. I mean, the temperature is flat, everything's perfect. I mean, you got to be out there. And then as that moves back during the night, 4, 3, 2 o'clock. So you do get better seeing once everything is acclimated, once all the heat's radiated off of where you live, you're going to get a better seeing condition. And then also when the planets come back around, they're gonna you got to attack them when they're up. So the sleep factor, you just gonna have to get out of bed or drink a pot of coffee and stay up. Okay, I mentioned earlier aperture and how critical it is
Thanks for
to
those.
really high resolution imaging, but I did want to show you what you can image. This is shot with a buddy of mine's 6-inch Celestron, and this is a shadow transit and a GRS, and it's a pretty good image for a little 6-inch telescope. I think it's really good. So if you have a 6-inch SCT, don't be deterred. You got a 5-inch X, don't be deterred. Get out there and do it. Don't think twice about it. And then the next image here, this is with a 6-inch APO and a Spree 6-inch. That's a reasonable image. You certainly can do planetary imaging with a 6-inch APO. Get out there and do it. I mean, work with what you got, and then as you get better at it, you can add a larger aperture instrument. But cut your teeth. If you got a 6-inch APO, go ahead and get into planetary imaging. Go ahead and do it. Okay, so resolving limits. These are the numbers: C14, 33. So you can see all the way up to a C6. I mean, that's 0.77 arc seconds. So, I mean, you're still resolving under 1 arc second. So it's still a very capable instrument. So as you can see, just you always want to try to sample at your optical resolving limit minimum. And you really, if seeing is good, you want to sample it about 3 times your resolving limit. That's but you can still, even if you just sample at your resolving limit, you can produce some fantastic images. So that's just something to know. You want to sample at your telescope resolving limit because you don't want to leave anything on the table. If the scene gets phenomenally good, you don't want to be undersampled, and it's like the telescope is trying to provide you with higher detail, and you can't capture it because you're sampling wrong. So you always want to sample at the minimum at your resolving limit. Now, this is where people are going to die when they see multiplication and all this crazy stuff. So I'll try to run through this fast to keep everybody, keep their attention. Pixel size times 5. That's a rule of thumb with the focal ratio. So for example, my camera has 2.9 pixel size times 5. That would be a focal ratio of 14.5. So that would be adding a 1.5 Barlow. So that's what I was saying earlier. On excellent seeing, I use a 1.5 Barlow. You don't want to be, really, really, really oversampled. And so as you can see with the C11, if your pixel size in your camera goes up to 3.75, you can actually, you can use a higher Barlow, but it's, your focal ratio, your target's going to be f22 with the 2x Barlow, and so you just sort of got to mix the numbers here, and this is how you do it. You change your sampling to match the seeing by adding or removing a Barlow, or like Eric said, binning the pixels in the camera 2 by 2. Either one of those will work. Once again, that's a 2x Barlow. If you have a really long focal length instrument, you probably and a very small pixel camera, you're going to want to get a Siebert Barlow that's a 1.5 or get a 1.5 Barlow out there. Here's the atmospheric dispersion corrector, and these are the levers I was moving here. When both levers are together, they're neutral, and then you move one lever and it changes the blue yellow, and the other lever changes the reddish yellow. So this is what you want to attach to the scope when you're low on the horizon, because this is what happens when you're low on the horizon. The atmosphere acts like a prism, and it just separates the red and the blue on the far end. So you get through a separation like that. And so this is what happens. Like, here's an example. If you're really low, like at the very bottom here, here's how the blue can separate from the red and give you a really terrible separation. So, and of course you can see up here what happens. That's how it sort of splits out as you're capturing it. Exaggerated to make a point. It's not that bad. It's not as bad as this, because you wouldn't get anything correct. But this just shows you, exactly what happens and why, if you're really low on the atmosphere, you want to use one of these things. This is the prism. When it's neutral, when it's together, it's neutral, and then when you rotate it wide open, it causes it. So you're basically counteracting, the split in the atmosphere. And this is really some examples. Like I was saying, in Auto Stacker 4 and Registax, you can do the RGB align. So the middle one is showing you how you can get this under control. But you might lose some sharpness in the rings here if you don't use the ADC. Now you got to remember something. This Sky Inspector guy's in the UK, so the planets can be terribly low up there at high latitude. So you may not get quite as much of a blurring here in the center down here in Georgia as you would way up there. But I believe up in Britain, if you're in the middle of Britain, and the planets are down at 30 degrees, this is exactly what you're going to get. So, but this is once again a little bit exaggerated. Oh, here it was, Saturn at 17 degrees altitude, 17 degrees, and that's what, so they had terrible altitude trying to image Saturn here. And
yeah, and that ADC made a huge difference at 17.
Oh yeah, monstrous difference. So monstrous difference. Okay, a couple of things that a lot of people don't understand about imaging. You have to collimate your telescope. This is something that a lot of people, if they don't know how to collimate it, they get mad because it's like, damn it, I don't want to collimate it, or I don't know how to collimate it. But you really, 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 really need to learn to collimate your telescope. You need to do it for two reasons. Number one, visual is going to give you great images. Number two, planetary. Number three, deep sky. Collimation pays off all three in spades. Miscollimation basically makes your telescope act like a much lesser aperture instrument. All right, so you're going to really handcuff yourself with miscollimation. And this severe out of collimation here in this example here on the right, everything's going to be soft. You're never going to sharpen anything else up. Okay, so collimation, but what's critical? So here it is here. When you miscollimate, see how blurry it gets? Everything gets soft.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you're basically stepping down. You're making the scope act like a much less apertured instrument, and you're making everything soft. So definitely just need to know how to collimate. If you don't know how, get somebody in your local club to show you how. You got to own it. That's just all there is to it. You just got to learn how to do it, and you got to own it. And there's just not any question about it. Just do it. There's no second guessing. You just have to do it and tell yourself I got to do it, and that's it. So, okay, thermal control.
Yep,
of course, down here in Redneckville, this is our form of thermal control in the summer. It's having cocktails in a nice, cool hot tub, redneck hot tub. But thermal control is really, really, really really important, because if you don't have thermal control, you're going to have substandard images. And this is what happens. A lot of people think that they can just take their telescope out of their living room, and it's 72 degrees in their house and it's 55 degrees outside, and they're going to take their telescope out and they're going to do a great planetary image. Not a chance.
On fire.
If that telescope is 20 degrees hotter than the outside atmosphere, it's got to shed all of that heat. Now, there are shortcuts that help today. Reflectix, you should wrap your telescope. I don't know if you saw the C14 Edge that was next to me.
That.
It's wrapped in Reflectix. That particular C14 that I used for Planetary has a carbon fiber tube in it. If you were wondering why it's not wrapped in Reflectix, it already has a carbon fiber tube, so it's already controls the amount of heat that comes out. This is the problem. When you have an aluminum tube, like a C11 aluminum tube, and you take it out and you're trying to get it acclimated, the tube gets super cold on the outside and it causes churning on the inside. It causes a miniature climate churn to happen inside the tube. So one of the ways that you can mitigate that is to wrap the tube in Reflectix, and that will give you a temporary reprieve from some of that hard churning. Nonetheless, you really need to be keeping your scope at temperature. So for example, let's say you get home from work at 7 o'clock, you're going to image at 9 o'clock. Please take your telescope out and put it in the yard, or put it, on the front step, or put it outside so that it can start acclimating to the temperature outside. Otherwise, you're going to get what you see in these two images. The image on the right, this is the secondary being wildly hot and giving off a distortion inside the telescope because the inside of the secondary is too hot. And over here on the right, this is a churn of where all of the heat in the telescope is rising directly up to the top of the tube, and you're going to get a distortion like that. So that's going to mess you up. You definitely need to make sure that your scope gets as acclimated as possible. This is what you need to check it with: infrared thermometer, $20 at Harbor Freight. You can also set a fan up to blow air on your telescope, just a box fan or whatever. That helps. Just anything, convection, to move the heat off of the scope. That helps especially if you're going to set it outside for an hour. If you already have it set up outside, make sure you take that 360 cover off and let it start getting acclimated, and just go ahead and, you can go around the telescope with this IR thermometer, and you can get a really good idea of what the temperature is of your scope. You can check the corrector plate, you can check the tube, you can check the casting, you can check your camera, check your Barlow, check all that stuff out, and you can figure out where some of your thermal issues are, because that will come back to bite you. Okay, so you wonder, well, how bad can it be? Well, take a look at this. This is with a thermal camera. Okay, so let's say that you got your, up here in the top left, your scope is acclimated. You took your scope out and set it on the front step. So look, the scope's looking good, except for this hot eyepiece back here in the back, but your scope is looking good. What you forgot to do is put your mount outside at the same time. So now you've got a hot mount that's giving off heat that distorts the wavefront. And where is this heat going from this mount? Straight up in front of what you're trying to image. So you've hung yourself here accidentally. Okay, look at me over here. Look how much heat's coming off of my head. Now this is in the cold, in the winter. So guess what you can do? Just putting a hoodie on can really stop a lot of the heat that radiates off of your body. Look over here in the bottom left. You got your scope set up in the yard. Your wife comes home from the store or whatever, and she parks the car right near your scope. Look how much heat's going to come off of that and radiate up here and affect the wavefront. So you got to be very conscientious of where your cars are when they were last driven. Get them as far away from the scope as you can. Get your mount out there, your tripod, and guess what? Look up here in the top right. Look at these counterweights. You can leave your counterweights inside. They can get hot, and you know what they're going to do? They're just going to radiate right up in front of your scope. That's going to distort the wavefront. So thermal management is really critical. A lot of people get Schmidt-Cassegrain telescopes, and the first thing out of their mouth is, "I got a soft one. I got a shitty one. This is no good." It's like, well, what did you do? Well, I took it outside of my house. I put it on my mount, and 5 minutes later, I looked, and all the images were mush. It's like, well, yeah, because you took it outside, and it's 20 degrees cooler, and the scope is trying to cool down, and now you've got a microclimate inside your scope, and the corrector plate's trying to give off heat as fast as possible. And on top of that, you might be giving counterweights beaming up in front of your scope, giving off their own heat. So very, 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 very critical in planetary imaging to manage heat and make sure that you don't have any heat distorting the wavefront in front of your telescope. It will make huge dividends, trust me. Okay, and then finally, capture software, bar capture, sharp cap, stacking, auto staggered 4, wavelets, Registax 5 or 6. When GPOS has derotation, that's more advanced. I don't particularly like it because I can get as many frames as I want now with these fast, cameras in the region of interest. Then final image tweaks, bring it in your favorite image program, Photoshop or something similar, Affinity or whatever, and do your final tweaks. And so anyway, I'll just run through some of these images real fast so you can see just some of mine. Since I do the presentation, I make people look at some of my images. So this was Uranus in 2008, where you could actually see the cap on it. Believe it or not, I haven't been able to get that back. Saturn in 2011. Now, remember we talked about dynamic things happening. This was when an asteroid ripped into Saturn and caused a chevron all the way across the planet. Okay, this was back in January of 2011. Okay, you can't just go out and capture this. This has already happened. Now, it's going to happen again in the future, but you want to be there when this happens. You want to be ready because, the word will go out everywhere, in the planetary imaging forum. Oh my God, get out and image now, and so you'll be able to capture something. This is a piece of history here. This is a fantastic asteroid impact on Saturn. All right, here's Mars from 2009. This is the Tharsis clouds over here. These are sort of clouds that float around. This is Mars 2025. Now, I sent this one to Sky and Telescope. I might get lucky. They may take this one because this has been such a lousy season for Mars. I haven't seen very many good resolution Mars images. You got some clouds over here, and you got some clouds down here at the bottom. So I got a decent chance of maybe getting that one published. I don't know. I sent it to him.
Looks good.
And Jupiter, this is back in 2012. Now, this was a real high resolution image from 2012. I mean, look at all this crazy crap going on in the great red spot. I mean, isn't that just absolutely delicious what's going on there? That is just, now, of course, you have to have great seeing of the gods, but it happens. And with every apparition, you'll probably have 3 times that it'll be great. One of those times you'll be sick and you can't do it. That'll just be automatic. You'll just be sick as a dog, and it's seeing of the gods, and you can't even crawl out to your telescope and do it because you'll be sick. The second thing that'll happen, this is Murphy's Law, is you'll have some event, like your daughter's getting married or your son's graduating high school. Now, forget it. Seeing of the gods.
Islanders are in the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll be, but that one time in the apparition, hopefully you'll be there. You'll be able to get it. Now, here's another crazy thing that happened in 2010. The southeastern equatorial band disappeared. There is no band here. Just like I was showing you, that top northern small band disappeared in 2020. Look at this. There's nothing here. It disappeared. Nothing. This was the entire apparition for 2010. It disappeared. You had no southern equatorial belt, none that you could see. This was crazy. And so, of course, you capture it, and that's history. You got it. So these are sort of iconic
real
moments
quick here, Dan. I got a question for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Josh was asking, how long do you shoot for each video?
Jupiter 2 minutes 10 seconds. Saturn 3 to 4 minutes. Mars 3 to 4 minutes.
And Thomas was asking, what frame rate do you usually shoot at?
I try to get as much as possible. So I try to use region of interest. Jupiter 250, Saturn probably. Saturn I'm hurting because it's so dim. It's half the brightness of Jupiter. So, I mean, I'm probably at 125 for Saturn. Mars is really bright. And with region of interest, you can get about 225 frames a second. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So
cool. Thanks.
Now this one got published in Sky and Telescope, not with all the text on it, but this is one that came out in 2024. This is Io. You can see a little bit of detail on Io with the really tight shadow transit with the GRS. They really like this one, so this one made the 2024 Sky and Telescope. It's sort of a neat image too, only because Io is so close to the shadow. It's sort of, and I was able to process it and bring out Io. Sometimes Io sort of disappears when you're trying to process it. I was able to sort of bring it out, and then this was another Io shadow transit here. This was this past 2024. This is Io right here, right above the GRS.
That's cool.
But look at look over here at the elongated shadow. It's gone to an ellipse because it's casting way. It's such an angle over Jupiter. So this is really cool here. This sort of elongated shadow transit, and then of course, and then now of course the Venus transit. You're not going to get that. We'll all be dead before the next one comes back.
Oh,
but
the sun.
You can't. Yeah, but here's one, and I got a little bird over here at the same time. But this was sort of cool, catching the Venus transit. So the same planetary imaging technique. And then here back in June, Titan transit. This was rare. This only happened twice in the apparition, or 3 times maybe. Here's Titan, the actual moon, doing a transit in front of Saturn. And as you can tell, versus the very first image of Saturn I had in my presentation, which that actually was a Sky and Telescope Saturn as well. The rings have really closed up.
Yeah,
and with the rings being closed up, yeah, and they're going to be dead on next year. So it's really going to be hard to image Saturn. Saturn's going to be a booger because it's so closed. Not going to be really good visually either. You know, most people when they look at Saturn, they want to see the rings like wide open. They want to see that, really awesome shot that hooks them. But unfortunately, next year is closed up. So that's where's the Price is Right music?
Yeah.
Too bad for next year for Saturn. But it will be getting higher in the sky. So that's really good for North America imagers. And then this was a Moon-Mars occultation where Mars went behind the moon. And this image was a complete stooge operation. I didn't time it right. I was trying to get the moon as it went behind Mars as it went behind the moon on the other side, and I wrote down the wrong times. And when I finally got on Mars, it was like right on the edge of the moon, and before I could get the gain set right on my camera and hit record, it had gone right behind the moon. I couldn't believe it. But that's sort of, it's called Three Stooges imaging. When you do planetary imaging, you're going to make a stooge mistake. I mean, it's just automatic. You're gonna do some funny thing that prevents you from imaging, and now you laugh about it later. It sort of makes the whole thing sort of fun. And I did another stooge move. I had the wrong numbers on when Mars came out the other side, and I had the wrong place of when it came out the other side. So when it came out, I couldn't find it where it was, and I had to start scanning around, and I found it. And here it was already that far. It had already come out from the moon and was boogieing away to the left. And so I really wanted to get it, in here where it had just, it just come out. But man, I was just lucky to get this. And, it's just one of those things that just everything went wrong. But I still was able to salvage this image. And then of course it's a story. It's sort of a story of your life. You tell the story of, how you screwed up, and yet you actually got something in the very end. So it's sort of a fun thing. It's a narrative of all your trials and tribulations with imaging. And then you can do planetary imaging. Now, this is the International Space Station crossing the moon. Now, this was actually done with a full frame camera in video mode. So this is not done with a planetary camera, but you can capture ISS transits, and you can look those up on Transit Finder, and you can have an ISS transit of the sun, and you can have an ISS transit of the moon, and it'll tell you where it is. So you'll have to actually pack your stuff up in the car and drive. This was in the sheriff's office in Aiken, South Carolina at 1:20 in the morning. I had to call them earlier and tell them, hey, look, I'm gonna be setting up what looks like a laser weapon in your parking lot, and I'm not going to shoot down a plane or anything. It's a telescope. And they were like, yeah, okay, sure, come on over, and so this was a video capture, and what I did was I broke down each video capture of where the ISS was as it crossed the sun. This took 1 second. Actually, I think it was less than 1 second, and the frame rate was 60 frames a second. And I think this was every other frame. I think there's 30, or maybe it's every third frame in there. But you can do stuff like this is with planetary techniques, is you can learn to capture the ISS as it goes across the sun or the moon. I mean, with a solar filter, you can do the same thing. Get you a white light solar filter, and you can use, if you know what part of the sun is going over or what part of the moon, you don't have to use a full frame camera. You can use the planetary camera. You just have to know where it starts, and you can, hit record and catch it. But like I say, it goes past really, really, really fast. And then that's it. So submit your images. Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers, British Astronomical Association. You can submit your images to the Facebook Astro Planetary group. I mean, just submit your images, and that's it.
Cool.
Now,
that was
Josh
awesome.
was asking, is there a way? Josh was asking, is there a way to analyze the videos you captured for quality?
Yeah, you just stack them, and you can batch stack them. Let me get back on the feed here. What have I got to do again? I gotta get,
because he was also asking, do you stack only one? Do you only stack from the same video, or can you stack across multiple videos?
Well, the problem when you stack across multiple videos, am I back on correctly here?
Yeah, you're on.
Yep, you are. You're good. We can see you.
Okay. The problem is when you stack multiple videos, you're going to get rotation blur. You can stack multiple videos and use derotation with WinJupos if you want to do that. That is, a lot of people do that. A lot of people find that they get some reasonable results with that. I have found that I don't really get any better results. If the seeing is good, I can capture 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 frames. And if the seeing is good, I'll get a good image out of my capture. I don't really have to capture 50,000 and derotate, but some people do it, and they find that it helps them, and if that helps you, great. But if you go longer than the 2-minute limit on Jupiter, 2 minutes 10 seconds, then you will have to use the derotation software. Otherwise, it's just going to blur out.
It spins so fast.
Yeah, Jupiter's rotating really, really, really fast.
Gideon was asking, are you currently in your observatory right now?
Yeah, well, this is the this is the warm room.
That's the ready room.
So, yeah, the ready. This is the warm room where I got my TV in the background. I got my processing computers over here, and I'm sitting on my Barker lounger. So this is really a man cave too. So
There you go.
There you go. I could get off mute. I could get off mute. The dogs were barking. So.
Well, that was really interesting, Dan. I like that. I really wanted.
You gave
I got
some
I
great
have
information.
to. I donated my 8-inch to Reach for the Stars. I wish I still had it.
Oh yeah, right. I remember
Well,
that. That was a couple years ago.
well, they come across. I mean, you find somebody. Unfortunately, because astronomy is some older people are in astronomy, so unfortunately people sort of pass on and their families liquidate their scopes. I mean, we've had that happen out here at Deer Lick, so you may be able to pick up something that I'm sure if somebody passed away, they want somebody to use it, so you may be able to get something that way, or just go out and buy one.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think we had another question. John was asking, so the lunar eclipse is tomorrow night. Should I use a UV-IR cut filter or take advantage of the IR capability of the 585 MC during totality?
I would remove the UV-IR for the moon.
You would remove it?
Yeah. Because you want as much of that red as possible. I would definitely take it out. But
there you go.
It's the eclipse is over an hour. So capture some with it, without it. I mean, do it like a science experiment. Do a bunch of captures with it, then remove it, then change your gain, change your frame rate. Just get a whole mishmash of different settings that you could play around with and figure out which one works the best for you, because the eclipse is at least an hour of full lunar eclipse, sure. Right?
Yeah.
It's so I'm unfortunately I don't think we're going to get much here, Eric. We may get a sucker hole. There's a little separation of about 3 or 4 hours right when it's supposed to happen here, but I don't know. That usually means you're just
we're supposed to be full clouded over here in the areas.
Oh, really? Yeah. All right. Well, anybody else?
Let's see. Yeah, no, my camera didn't tilt. I'm just slumping. Let's see. I don't. Is anyone order me? Let's see. There was Josh had a bunch of questions. John. Okay, John Capiton, you got him. No, I think that's it on that. So I just had to cut back Eric's noise gate. Eric, can you say something real quick so I can hear you?
Yeah, testing. Sorry, my headphones died, so that's why I got a little lag.
So if Eric sounds like he's coming in and out, that's the noise gate effect. So,
yeah.
But no.
Dan, thank you so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate it. I mean, this was an awesome presentation, and a great walkthrough. So this is awesome. Thank you.
I assume you taped this, right?
Oh yeah, it's on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
you can see it again. You could go on.
I'll be able to refer back to it when we get into it.
Oh,
we're gonna go.
That's killing me.
Exactly.
How do you say to do this? Let me go back to the video real quick.
Yeah. You can go right on the live tab on AstroWorld TV. You can see it.
Well, the good news is that you were able to see me turn the telescope on. I hope that white light didn't bother so much. I left it on so you could see
Yeah.
I didn't. Okay, good. But I just flipped the scope on, and how fast it took me to get Jupiter right on the chip, and to just manually focus, and then just use the Crayford motorized focuser, and then boom, you're capturing.
Yeah.
I think
that was very
I think
quick. It was very
the
impressive.
yeah, I mean, everybody's got lives. Some people can't spend an enormous amount of time, but boy, this can be fast. It's
Yep.
it's something you can do fast.
Awesome. All right.
Well, just to let everyone know, there was a couple questions about image of the week. Sorry for the delay on image of the week, but the poll is up. So you can go to visit astroworldweb.com/IOTW, and the voting poll is up. So you can go and vote now. So yeah, you can do that up until Friday.
All right, cool. Awesome. No, yeah, I got things all messed up here. My light's not working. My earphones aren't working. My chairs. I'm a mess. Anyway, but Dan, thanks again for coming down and spending a Wednesday night with us. Appreciate it, and it's been great. It's been awesome.
It's been
great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
really,
for having
really,
me,
really,
and
really informative.
yeah, I mean, thanks for having me, and like I say, I just love to help people get into this. My whole goal is, if somebody's watching tonight, including y'all, to get on the Planetary bandwagon. If I can get somebody started in this, it really changes your life. Being able to do this, and it's so funny because I'll give some talks, like we'll have the Georgia Tech students out here, and I'll give a talk to them. And it's funny because I'll say, you guys are all worried about accomplishing stuff, and you're young and you don't have any accomplishments yet. And I say to them, when you get my age, you want to still be relevant. You want to be doing stuff
That's right.
that's relevant, and this really sort of keeps you pushing,
Yep,
and
absolutely.
and so it's one of those things that, if hopefully a handful of people will see this and get excited about it and jump in it, and hey, the more the merrier.
Yep, absolutely.
We do have another question here. Josh is asking some great questions here. But he asked, do you have to focus differently on the planets from when you're focused on the versus when you're focused on the stars? Or can you focus on stars and use that for the planet?
You can use the focus on stars, but it's way easier to focus live on the planet, so that that you're in focus because you see it live on the screen. There have been a few people that I tutored starting out who insisted on focusing on stars first, and they didn't quite like the way their images turned out. And I was like, well, the only, I mean, if that's the way they have to do it, maybe like if they have an auto focusing routine or something and they're locked into that. But I think it's always better to have the actual live image that you're looking at, that you're going to focus on. And you can reduce the gain down so that the planet's not quite as bright. So it dims down a little bit and you can see the features a little bit more, so that you can see them come in sharper. Now, I will tell you, the only alternative focus that I would recommend over focusing like on Jupiter and Mars is if the moon is up and is fairly close. You can go over to the moon, put your planetary camera on the moon, and you can dial that sucker right in to see the craters really sharp. And that'll be in focus. Okay. And then you can go back. So if you're going to alternately focus on something, the moon is a great object to focus on. Now, here's the drawback to that. If you have a Schmidt-Cassegrain, because it can have some mirror shift in it on that tube that's in the center, you can go over to the moon and it can tilt the mirror and change the focus. And then when you go back, it's not going to. So a lot of times, unless you're just having a really, really, really hard time focusing, it's really better to sort of focus exactly where the scope is and not go somewhere and come back and have a chance that your mirror flop is gonna show up. Now on the on the edge scopes, they have the mirror locks, and you can add mirror locks to the SCT, but just be aware of that slewing to a different part of the sky, focusing and then coming back, you just might not be in focus anymore.
Yeah.
Also, as your scope acclimates, it should be close to being acclimated, but believe it or not, your focus can drift, especially if you're going at it for 30 minutes. So I try to do 1, 2, 3 runs of a couple of minutes each, and then I refocus. I'll go ahead and just refocus. So I'll do maybe three runs and then refocus live, just to make sure it hadn't drifted a little bit. So it's possible to do it on a star, but I just wouldn't recommend it.
Okay. Oh, hold on, Eric. I gotta unmute you. Hold on a second. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you've got the Edge HDs. You mentioned those Schmidt-Cassegrains. Is there an advantage because those mirror lock over that to do planetary versus just a traditional, like C14 XLT or C11, the black ones?
I think you can do excellent planetary images with both. What I would worry about is if you have an SCT that's got a lot of mirror flop in it, you're going to have to address that. You can purchase a C14 Edge to eliminate that and put the locks on. The drawback is you have 2 lenses in the draw tube that flatten the field out. So a Schmidt-Cassegrain is super sharp, dead center. The Edge compensates a little bit and takes a little bit of sharpness away from the center of the field and pushes it out. So you get a wider field flatness where the whole image is sharp across the field. And it does sacrifice a slight bit of high level sharpness dead center. Now, I've never done a quantitative measurement of it. I know that Damian Peach got a C14 Edge. I'm not sure if he's still using it or not, but I did some good planetary with the Edge that you saw, when I first got that years ago. So I don't really think it's that big of an issue, but you will have to solve the mirror flop problem, meaning that if you collimate your scope on one side of the meridian and you slew to the other side of the meridian and the mirror flops, you're not in collimation anymore. So this happens with a lot of these older Schmidt-Cassegrains where they got a lot of mirror flop in them. You can defeat that by putting these mirror locks in the shipping locks. They're screws that you put in. They're called flop stoppers, and they just touch the back of the mirror so that you put it in till it touches, so it can't. You're pushing the mirror up because it's on a baffle tube, and so you've got this the focuser is on a ring on a baffle tube, and there's some flop in the tube, and so when you put a flop stopper in, you're sort of tilting the tube against the sidewall, and you're not letting it flop anymore. So you can have some problems with the older ones. My buddy's got a new C14 regular. I don't see any flop in his mirror when he focuses. With the coarse focuser, there's just very minimal movement. So I think it sort of depends on whether you have that issue or not with an older Schmidt-Cassegrain. You definitely want to address it. And one of the ways that you would do that is if you can't fix it, is you want to collimate and do everything on one side of the meridian. So if you collimate on one side of the meridian, you want to make sure you intersect Jupiter before it goes over the meridian, so your scope flops. So, but those are fairly extreme cases that you have to deal with, but it may come up if you have an older scope.
Okay.
The Mac cast, using a Mac cast to do planetary, is that a better choice, in your opinion? Because, the way it's designed, is that a better choice for planetary over a Schmidt? Or what is your opinion?
Well, a Maksutov is a fine telescope. The problem with the Maksutov is the meniscus mirror is really thick on the front end of the scope. So it causes cool down issues with Macs. They have a lot harder time cooling down because with the Schmidt Cassegrain, you can evacuate the heat through the corrector plate because it's just about as thick as plate glass. But that meniscus is like, it could be an inch thick. So the Mac cast can suffer from cool down problems. I don't recommend people use a Mac cast for planetary. Like if you live up north, like if you live in Minnesota, don't use it up there because it's never going to get acclimated. If you're in a more temperate area, Florida, some of the places where the temperature is okay, Maksutovs can be fine instruments. Now, that being said, you're limited in some sense by aperture. You're not going to, an 11-inch Maksutov is going to cost a fortune for you. So you're going to get into a trade-off where is my 7-inch Maksutov, my Celestron 7-inch Mac, is that going to out-resolve my C11 Schmidt? The answer is no. It's not. So will you get a good image from the 7? Sure. But it's not going to out-resolve it. I have an interesting little story. Back when refractors were all this schnizzle, I don't know if you guys remember this, but like in the late 90s, early 2000s, the Roland Christian triplets and the TMB triplets and the Thomas Back scopes, they were just hot as pancakes, and everybody, and it did produce a really nice, pleasing view at the eyepiece. And then when planetary imaging started, the consensus was that, that astrophysics 6-inch scope is going to destroy that 11-inch mush dog. A lot of people like to use to call older Schmidt Cassegrains mush dogs, and it's like, and it turns out the exact opposite happened. The Schmidt Cassegrain turned out to be the imaging telescope of choice. Damien Peach with a C14, Christopher Go with a C14. Tons of top imagers use a C14. Nobody uses a triplet refractor. That's not saying, now I showed a 6-inch refractor image in my presentation. You can do a decent image, but you're not gonna compete against Damien Peach with a 6-inch refractor. And that really sort of upset a lot of refractor people because they thought, well, how is this scope doing this? And it's like, well, it goes back to the despeckle nature of the seeing. The Registax is able to despeckle the image with a wavelet process and pull out the detail that's hidden underneath sort of the blur that happens from the despeckle. So you're able to Registax the scope to its optimal resolving capacity. Whereas at the eyepiece, you might not like the view of a C14 versus the refractor. The refractor view might be at the eyepiece a little bit more crisp. But when you're doing planetary and you're stacking, 15,000 images and you're doing wavelets on it, the larger aperture Schmidt Cassegrains just shine. And that really upset a lot of refractor people. They were pissed off about that because they had spent lots and lots of money on their triplets, and to find out that it was not really a front runner in planetary imaging, that sort of that made them sort of mad. Now, look, I have a triplet refractor. I love refractors, but they're just like Maksudovs in the sense that once you get up to a 6 or 7 inch, man, that's about the limit you're going to get before the cost goes through the roof to get that extra resolving power that the aperture is going to give you. So if you have a Maksudov, sure, use it. But I wouldn't, if I was trying to decide between a 7-inch Maksudov and a 925 Celestron, I'd get the 925. Just because the aperture resolving power is going to win every time. So get the largest telescope, that's going to work for you. But if you already have a 7, I mean, use it. Don't throw it away. I mean, don't panic, but just slowly make your way up in aperture as you get better and better at it.
Well, thanks
Now
again,
I'm going to
Dan.
get a
We
lot of
really
hate mail.
appreciate the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I'm going to get a lot of hate mail
But
from all the
no.
refractor people. They're going to, they're not.
Dan, Dan's writing you up right now. Dan's writing you up right now.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
That's right.
Awesome.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all I got.
No, I think we've got it covered.
Yep.
Yeah. So no. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Don't forget to give a thumbs up before you guys head out. And if you're on the replay or anything like that, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. And yeah, again, Dan, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was really cool.
No problem at all.
Yeah, it's a good
No
time,
problem.
man.
Thanks a
Awesome.
lot. Yeah, it was great being on here. Thank you very much for having me. And hey, ask me back anytime. I'm ready.
Are you going to be up in Neath?
Awesome.
It's 50-50. I want to go.
Well, hopefully we'll see you up there.
But yeah. It'd be great.
Yeah, come and see us. We'll be right next to Prima Luce, actually. So.
Oh, okay. You can tell him I advertised his stuff for him.
There you go.
Tell him I'll pick my check up.
I already sent him a picture. I said, Tom, you started selling mounts now?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was just something
All right.
I grabbed real fast, unfortunately. So
that's all right. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
So don't forget, everybody, image of the week is up. So go vote. You have until Friday. There's some great images out there. We got some good images for both novice and experienced. So that's some great news that we have another, we have some legit competition here in both brackets. So go check that out. Dave, any final thoughts on your end, man?
No, pretty much covered it. Thanks, Dan, again. It was a really cool presentation. I really want to do Planetary. I just need the aperture. So I'll get there.
Start with the moon.
Yeah, I could do that. I wish it was. I was hoping it was going to be clear tomorrow night because I was going to really try to do the eclipse. But it's not looking good where I am.
Listen, the moon kills us with light pollution. So you might as well, turn lemons into lemonade and image some of the craters on it,
That's true. That's true.
Yep. All right.
Oh yeah, just really quick for
winner from last
who
week.
Winner from last week. Let me just go there and we can make that announcement here really quick before we get out of here. And go there. Let me just share my screen here. Okay. All right. So for the novice bracket, we had 19 votes. And the winner is Horse Helmet by Brian Vinci.
Nice.
Cool.
So nice. Way to go. And go back here. for our experience bracket, we had 57 votes. And the winner is Fox Fur by Chris Fierksen. That was a
Yeah.
great shot, man. Really.
Really good
That was
shot.
a great shot. It almost looked 3D-ish in a way, you know?
Yep.
So nice. So congratulations to you both, you know. All right.
There you go.
All right. Well, thanks again. So Mr. Dan, you got any final thoughts? Want to take us before you head out?
Go Islanders, and that's about it. I've been working since 7:30. I haven't stopped since I got home, so I'm just kind of burnt out.
I hear you, man. So yeah,
I give you one.
Thanks, everybody.
I give you one parting shot here. You need to do planetary imaging because what else are you going to do? Rearrange your sock drawer? I mean, come on.
Yeah, amen to that. Yeah.
There you go.
That's
that's awesome. Great final shot there. Thanks, Dan.
awesome.
All right.
Just as far as next guests are concerned, I'm working on Tom McCrory. I don't know if you know who Tom McCrory is. He is, I think it's called AstroPix, the new software that he's coming out with to kind of hang out, and he's going to show us a little bit about processing with Astro. I think it's called AstroPix. And he's from the UK, so that might be on a Saturday. I'm going to get Sarah Matthews back on, so that's something that's coming. And it's getting to be springtime, so we're going to start building up the guest machine again. So time to get more guests on Wednesday nights. So it'll be cool.
Good deal.
All right, Friday. Unless you guys have any objections, I got my new Melee. I got a 4C.
Mm-hmm.
So I figure, I think even Gideon was asking about this. We're gonna set Nina up on my 4C and get it ready for Astro and all that fun stuff. So
cool.
I figured that would be a nice little, subject for Friday night show.
Load it up, man.
Load it up. Yeah. We can load that up, load Nina and all my other stuff up. So yeah. I think that's what we'll probably do on Friday is do that.
Oh, hopefully I'll have a new ring light so I can see myself.
Amazon.com.
Yeah, hopefully.
Oh, that's coming tomorrow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Again, Dan, thanks so much for hanging out with us again. It's definitely one of the longer shows. It's almost
he's up in Wayne Parker territory.
Yeah, it's in Wayne Parker territory. Yeah, exactly. But definitely a lot of great information. I appreciate all your knowledge and all the ideas and thoughts that you imparted out to the membership. And I know that they've enjoyed it too because they've been bouncing back and forth to the chat saying thank you, great job, Dan, and not me, you, but thanks so much for hanging out with us and showing out.
Fantastic. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Anything else, fellas? We good?
That's it. Yeah. Everybody have a good night.
All right, Dan. Thanks so much. Everybody have a great night. Eric, Dave, talk to you in a little bit. Everybody have a good night. We'll see you on Friday night. And remember, as always, to keep imaging, keep educating, and clear skies. And we'll see you on Friday.